Gun ownership in Canada, in this country, is a privilege and not a right. It's a privilege that's predicated on the strict adherence to our laws, our regulations, and our restrictions. It's a principle that's based on the fact that firearms in Canada are intended for use for hunting and for sports purposes. We do not arm ourselves in this country to protect ourselves from our fellow citizens. We rely on the rule of law, not the end of a gun, for our safety. Earlier this morning, Minister Lametti and I had the honor to present to the House Bill C-21, a bill that, when passed, will significantly strengthen gun control in Canada. And with this bill, we are keeping our promise to Canadians to reduce gun violence by strengthening our laws, prohibiting firearms which were designed only to kill, by placing significant and effective new restrictions on guns that are used by criminals, and by creating a regime to remove firearms from dangerous situations made deadly by the presence of a firearm. With the passing of this new bill, we will eliminate all legal use of these firearms and impose such conditions as are necessary to keep Canadians safe. Under previous prohibitions, listed firearms have been grandfathered. This allowed owners not only to retain their prohibited firearms, but in many cases, to continue to shoot them at a range, to sell them to other licensed individuals, to acquire additional prohibited weapons, to transfer their ownership, to transfer and to bequeath them. This is not what our legislation allow. These previous measures allowed for these firearms to be used, to be continued to be traded, and to continue to be sold. Under our legislation, current owners of these weapons will be required to comply with strict new regulations, which will effectively eliminate all legal use of these firearms by private owners. They will not be able to legally discharge these weapons at a range or anywhere else. They cannot be transported, sold, traded, transferred, or bequeathed. And we will also define strict new secure storage requirements. And finally, all persons wishing to retain these firearms will be required to obtain a license to possess them and register all prohibited weapons in their possession. With these measures, it'll enable authorities to know exactly who has such firearms, what they have, and where they are stored. And violating any of these requirements could result in serious criminal charges. We know that the vast majority of Canadians who previously acquired these firearms did so legally, and that they will continue to obey the law. We also know that as these new measures will eliminate all legal use of these weapons, the majority of existing owners will have no reason to retain them. We are creating the appropriate conditions and protections to facilitate a fair, respectful, and safe buyback program for these newly prohibited weapons.